All right, welcome to the Summoner Shadowblight CE Corpse Tendril Sever build, I guess we'll call it that. The whole build is around your minions to help you do damage. They support you with corpses and, well, if you have frost mages, which you will for some amount of time, they also feed you essence. The whole build is your damage is going to come from, like I said, your summoners a little bit, as well as from Sever and Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion will probably end up being a large amount of your damage, especially in the early game when your essence generation's not super great, so you can't really spam your spender too much. You ideally don't want to be using your basic attack as much as possible, because it does very bad damage and stuff like that. There's usually corpses on the ground for you to Corpse Explosion, and that's gonna be way better damage. In the build, I took Reap, I think it's called, but you really honestly can pick any of the starting spenders. It doesn't matter that much. You can use Bone Splinter or whatever you fancy. A lot of the guides are telling people to take Bone Splinter because it's like quote unquote the best basic skill. So if you want to use that, you can, but yeah. You saw we just did a world event. It was pretty easy, no problems with the build being able to handle anything like that. And now we're in a dungeon now with a boss at the end. Sometimes some of the bosses, especially before you get Death's Defense, can be a bit problematic because your skeletons have a bad habit of getting one shot to certain mechanics. But once you get Death's Defense, that is solved. All right, while we're doing this dungeon, we're going to go over a couple of legendary affixes or aspects that you can get that might be helpful to you while you're leveling. It'll increase your power or your research generation or something like that. Just anything that will help you get through the leveling process. First, we'll go over the 4 I have here that are available just through a dungeon. So you can get these just by going to do a dungeon, and then they will go into your codex and you can use them whenever you want, apply them to an item to make it a legendary item. The first one will be Aspect of Grasping Veins, which is you gain 10% crit strike chance for 6 seconds when you cast Corpse Tendrils, and you deal 30% bonus crit strike damage to enemies damaged by Corpse Tendrils. This is unlocked in the Corrupted Grotto in Kyrgyzstan. For these items for these aspects in general, you won't want to apply them to your weapon. You'll apply them to whatever slots are available for them to be applied to. Because your amulet gives you increased power on the aspect, you generally want to put something that's relatively high damage on it. An example of that would be either Aspect of Reanimation, or maybe even like Blighted Decay or Blighted Aspect, or I think the one's called Aspect of Decay. Just one of the things that will increase your damage throughput. And then yeah, another aspect that you can farm will be Aspect of Reanimation, which I just mentioned as a potential for your amulet. Skeletons gain increased damage while alive up to 20% after 10 seconds. It's unlocked in Alderwood in Skazglen. There's also Aspect of the Umbral, which restores one of your primary resource when you crowd control an enemy. That's unlocked in the Champion's Demise and Dry Steps. And a crowd control in this game is any sort of CC. It doesn't have to be hard CC. It doesn't have to be a stun or a freeze or anything like that. Slows also count as crowd control. And then the last one would be Blighted Aspect. You deal 50% increased damage for 6 seconds after the Shadowblight key passive damage enemies 10 times. So while this is a nice potential aspect, it's not worth it until you actually have Shadowblight. So like super early game, this won't be helpful to you. But once you have Shadowblight, you can go get this aspect and put it on something. Some other aspects that you could potentially get, but are not farmable or are not acquirable through a dungeon, would be something like the Vicious Utility aspect. which gives you 2 more skeleton mages. And then there's also Blood Getter's utility aspect, which gives you 2 more skeleton warriors. You can get some more skeletons that way. And then the last couple would be Aspect of Decay, which is each time the Shadowblight key passive deals damage to enemies, it increases the next Shadowblight's damage within 10 seconds by 20%. Well, it's 20 to 40. Because these are not dungeon aspects, they have a range you can roll. And all of the dungeon aspects that I listed before, the 4 that I listed, can also roll on items and get higher values than what you can get through the dungeon. So always keep an eye out for that. And then let's see, another one would be Aspect of Frenzied Death, which is each time one of your summoning minions damages an enemy, they gain 10 to 14% attack speed for 3 seconds, up to 30 to 42%. So give your skeletons a nice little, skeletons and golem, I guess, a nice little attack speed boost. Aspect of Hardened Bones, when you have 7 or more minions, your minions gain 15 to 20% increased damage reduction. And I think that's all the ones that I found that I thought might be even potentially useful. So if you can grab one of those, you know, if you find a legendary and maybe it has something good on it, you can either rip the imprint off and then put it on something that you're using, or you can just use the item itself, whatever happens to be the better case for you. But to expand on what I said earlier about the weapons, as you're leveling, make sure you're always picking up and checking weapons for new weapons. All your spells and stuff scale off your weapon damage. So in general, you want to use a 2-handed weapon that is like the highest damage weapon you have, and you pretty much always want to replace that whenever you find something that's new with higher damage. You can even upgrade it once or twice if you want at the blacksmith, and it'll last a little longer that way. But yeah, so all your clear speed and all that is attached to your weapon, so keep upgrading your weapon as you're leveling. Upgrading your armor isn't as big a deal unless you're playing hardcore, and then you probably want to keep upgrading your armor as well so you don't die. But if you're playing softcore, then don't worry about it too much. Just try to get some good aspects and some good stats. And then down the line, when you're like done the story and stuff, you can work on upgrading your armor. This build is a lot of, I don't know, I guess juggling or spinning plates or whatever you want to call it. You have to be doing a lot of different things at the same time. You have to be corpse tendriling, corpse explosioning, as well as making sure your minions are getting healed. So you're summoning your skeleton priest once every 5 seconds. It is a lot of juggling or spinning plates. So there is that. If that's not your play style, then this is not it. But it's really not that bad, especially once your skeletons get a lot tankier. You don't have to worry about healing them as much, because they'll be taking way less damage. As well as when you get bonded in essence, you'll be healing them for a lot more every time you cast your heal on them. So they'll need a lot less babysitting. I'm gonna do a the build will be in the description, as well as like a guide as to what to level and at what levels and stuff like that. This character you're watching here is not my first character, so she has extra talent points, but I have not spent them. You'll see the little talent skill pop up all the times because she has, I think, 8 extra talent points from my renown, and I'm just not using them, so the build's not, 8 talent points stronger than it should be. Well, when you're actually leveling, you'll actually be stronger than this because you'll be getting the renown skill points yourself and actually being able to spend them. I just spent none on this character just to make sure the build actually works. When I leveled, I didn't use this build. I used a Bone Spear build because back then the minions were said to be absolutely trash, but they're actually fine. We'll see in this boss that, I mean, the minions are plenty tanky. I mean, even without Death's Defense or Bonded in Essence, my minions are doing okay here. They are taking, you know, a lot of damage, and I'm not healing them fast enough, but we gotta resummon a couple. It's not a big deal. There you go. Boss is not too bad. That boss wasn't one that like murders AoE or anything like that. If that is the boss you get, it's can be a little spicy, but it's always manageable. You get enough corpses from your reapers and through hewn bodies or something to replenish or just do damage yourself. But yeah, so that's the build in action. And now we'll get more into the actual build itself. All right, well, you saw how the build does both in open world and dungeons. It's very strong. It feels very viable. It's pretty safe too. There are some small changes you can make. I happen to have a point in this from an item contribution, but you could run Blood Mist, especially if you're playing like hardcore or something. And then you could just not have Golem, and that would be fine. I mean, it's kind of sad not having one of your summons, but you know, you can't, if you're playing hard, especially if you're playing hardcore, you can't go without Blood Mist. If you don't have Blood Mist, you're just asking it to just get CC'd and died and lose your character. So yeah, if you're playing hardcore or something, you can use Blood Mist. Later on in the build, you will pick up Blood Mist and you will take your basic attack off your bar completely. So you'll just have your spender, and then you were going to replace it with Blood Mist for safety reasons. But there's some things you need to get before you can do that to make sure your essence is okay. But yeah, that's the build for leveling. Once you get to like done the campaign, get into tier 3, the build doesn't really change too much. I'll make another video about that, but there's a couple uniques and stuff that really let you make some changes to your abilities and stuff. But like I said, that'll be in the next video. I'm missing some key points here, like Death's Defense and Bonded in Essence. Bonded in Essence and Death Defense are absolutely huge for your skeleton survivability. Death Defense at 3 points makes it so that the minions can't take more than 30% of their total health from a single damage instance, so they can't get one shot by anything. And then Bonded in Essence will heal them for 60% of their maximum life 5 seconds after you summon your little skeleton priest, which is what happens when you use Raised Skeleton when you're at maximum skeletons. So not only can they not take, you know, they only can take 30% of their health and damage from a single attack, you're also healing them from 60% every 5 seconds. So it makes them very, very hard to kill unless they're taking just massive amounts of damage, which can happen, but usually not the case. And that's it. Build only gets stronger until mid to late game. But thanks for watching, guys. I hope you have fun on your Summoner Shadow Necro. See ya.